Welcome back to the Witness to Fitness podcast. I've got a right treat for you today. Today, I've got a strength and conditioning coach, Connor. I've known Connor ages. He's been in the fitness industry a good while. And today, we're going to talk about how to bulletproof your body. We're talking injury prevention and recovery tips. Let's go.
Witness to Fitness podcast. Discussions and ramblings of everything fitness, health, and nutrition. Let's go.
Thanks for joining us, Connor. It's great to see you again. So we're going to talk injuries, and I'm just going to point at the obvious.
Yes, the gammy eye straight away.
Would you like to tell everyone how you've gammy-eyed? Because it's really...
Just playing rugby. Really benign. Went for a tackle side on. Easiest tackle in the world. He tried to hand me off. His finger ended up in my eye.
So it weren't the case of you went, I'm going to do a podcast about injuries and stuff. Excuse me, sir, would you mind just stabbing me in the eye?
No, definitely not.
It's good.
The fear of losing my eyesight at the time was definitely not worth looking a bit hard on a podcast.
So obviously you've got a big strength and conditioning background. You're still active in rugby. You're still active in fitness. You know, the main reason to talk about injury prevention for me, and I'm sure you're the same, that it always crops up. There's always someone there's someone going,
every day.
Oh, my shoulder hurts, my back hurts, or I've done this and I've done that. So we're kind of going to break it all down. We'll take it into different areas, but really we're going to look at giving the people at home some advice, information, and practical tips that they should be hopefully applying, so their injury prevention is less, or if they do get injured, they're going to recover a lot sooner. So I wanted to kick off with, obviously in line with the eye, what has been your worst injury, whether that be just fitness or rugby related?
Worst injury.
Injury.
Touch wood, I've not had any serious injuries. They've all been pretty superficial. Worst thing's probably I pulled my hamstring.
Oh, you've done all right then.
I've been very lucky. I mean, I try to keep myself in decent shape, but really lucky. Broken bones, I've broken my toes, that's it.
How'd you break your toes?
When I kickboxed as I was a kid, and just kicking people's elbows. So where they'd blocked well, and my toes had just slammed into the bony elbow. I
mean, sport's got a misconception because, I mean, the safest sport to do, especially for kids, is weightlifting. Yeah. And when I tell people that, they're like, what? And I'm like, well, it makes perfect sense because there's no overly sudden movements. There's no kind of contact of different people or speed element or changes direction. It's like, you get people like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to get my kid to do that because they're going to get injured. And it's like, the likelihood of them getting injured playing football or rugby is significantly higher than just coming into here where they've got a coach and it's going to be applied and they're watched and, you know, they've got a thorough warm-up and they're going to lift some heavy weights.
Yeah, and I think another misconception is also like the growth aspect. Everyone assumes it's like an old wives' tale that if you lift weights when you're younger, you're just not going to grow. It's just not how it works. There's no research to say it affects anything.
Do you still get that then? Because obviously you still work with kind of grassroots.
Yeah, you get that quite a lot. It's changing quite rapidly, especially in the levels that I coach with the county level, and they're looking to go on to like Centre of Excellence and all that kind of stuff, where they're working with the England squad, stuff like that. Like they're coming round to it, but there's still a lot of parents like, oh, what if, you know, to play rugby, you've got to be tall. Like, what happens? Like, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to affect how tall they get. Nothing in the weight room anyway. That's all.
So just to conclude, your growth plates and your kid are fine. Get them into weightlifting, they're just going to get stronger. That's pretty much it. Right. So what would you say the most common injury is that you come across? Obviously in your sphere, which is mainly rugby, what is the most common that you come across with athletes? So
it's knee and ankle. Knee and ankle. I work a lot with women's sports. So 4 of the teams I work with are women. And it's all knees and ankles. It's, you know, MCL, ACL, lateral ankle sprains. They're probably the 3 biggest that you see in terms of ACL being time out of the sport, surgery, the whole deal.
Big impact.
Yeah, huge. But they don't happen as much. But lateral ankle sprains, I probably see 1 a week.
What do you think that is? Just the twisting and turning or the tackling or a bit of a combination?
Bit of a combination. I mean, things like the pitch, the state of the pitch, especially in the winter months. You know, if their feet are moving around where they don't want them to be and they're not quite sure about it yet, then like how to move around on a floor like that. then it's just going to go.
So if you look at what's happening in the gym, so we moved off the pitch, what kind of injuries do you normally see within, we'll just say a gym setting, a fitness setting?
Within a gym setting?
Yeah, so people training.
Stupid injuries. It's the ego lifters. They're the ones. Or it's like, so where I work at Ratcliffe, the fractional plates are silver and metal, but we've got competition bumper plates that are metal in the middle.
Yeah.
So if someone puts a fractional over a big sort of coloured one, no one looks. So they'll pull the plate off, the little one falls on their toe. And that is probably the worst one I've seen in the last 2 years. That is the worst injury I've seen in a gym, is someone's dropped a plate on their toe and it's really hurt their toe. That's it. Or the normal niggles of, oh, my shoulder hurts my bench. It's like, did you warm up? Oh, no. Probably warm up next time. You'll be fine.
That still amazes me how many people I speak to that, even if it's not injuries, like progression, and you'll start asking them questions, and all they're interested in is like the stuff that gives them marginal gains.
Yes.
So like, I don't know, I'm trying to get faster running. So let me buy the trainers, and I've seen, let me wear the windproof stuff. Let me shave my legs for aerodynamics. Yeah. And then when I start asking stupid questions like, what's your warm-up look like? What do you do for recovery? Do you stretch? Do you do this? And they're like, oh, I haven't really got time. I'm like,
yeah.
You're worrying about things that give you this much, like the tiniest bit advantage. And weirdly, if you warmed up and recovered appropriately and consistently, your progress would be significantly just huge.
Yeah, and the time thing I'll never understand, especially runners, get yourself some compression leggings. What's taking up your time other than putting them on?
Yeah.
Like, it's the easiest thing. There's loads of research that says it helps. It's throw them on, sit around for a couple of hours, have your dinner after your big run in the evening, and that's it. That's your recovery. Don't have to think about ice baths, nothing like that. You don't have to do that. Just sit down.
Compress your muscles with a...
Yeah.
So I'm glad you asked that. So if you'd went, let me go kind of this or that, because obviously you see these kind of things. People relying on tape a lot, compression garments. What would you lean to?
In between those two, compression. Taping, K-tape's weird anyway. There's research saying yes, research saying no. Anecdotally, some people think it helps. Placebo effect, probably.
I mean, I am no way experienced with the tape, but when I see it, I'm like, I look at most and kind of go, I'm pretty sure that's not put on right. Yep. Do you know what I mean? Because it has to be like very specific, because it needs to take off the load of the joint in a very particular way.
Yeah, like you have to be pretty good at anatomy to understand how to K-tape.
Yeah.
And when you see all the squiggly lines and it looks quite cool, the different colours looks great. Yeah, like you say, probably not doing a great deal.
I mean, the thing about that tape as well is, I mean, as you know, I've done anatomy quite a lot, and everyone's anatomy is slightly different. So while we've got an idea of like, it's going to be there and there, you don't know whether it is for you because you haven't really got X-ray vision to see inside and just see like, where does your attachment, because it's going to be about here, but it might not. So, obviously the first time they put tape on, it's usually done by some physio, and it feels amazing because the physio is doing it right. Yeah. And they go, put it in the same place and you'll think you put it in, but it's not. Yeah. I mean, just for ease alone, I would lean towards compression because like you say, just slip it on. Done.
Couple of seconds.
Yeah. No,
you don't have to sit doing the Wim Hof and sit in ice water or anything like that.
No.
Just settle down, just relax.
I mean, because obviously if we go this or that, what's your kind of likelihood of going sauna or ice bath?
Depends what you want for.
Go on then.
It depends. So sauna, you're trying to relax your muscles, aren't you? And get blood flow.
Yep.
Whereas ice baths, you're probably looking to get rid of waste product. So if you've had a really hard session, you could probably go and sit in an ice bath. If you're just trying to like relax a little bit or take some pressure off, go sit in a sauna. There's other benefits to other stuff like water immersion alone, whether it's ice baths or just in a pool.
Well, there's that compression element again, weirdly.
Yeah.
The pressure of the water has a similar effect to them wearing compression garments.
And again, if you're trying to get rid of waste product, gravity, you're always fighting gravity. Your blood's always fighting gravity. Veins don't pump very hard. If you're in water, the gravity kind of goes away. It's a lot easier for your heart to get the blood through and get it round and get it back to your heart to get rid of the waste product.
Yep, that makes sense. I mean, so I mean, I've used cold baths, I've used hot baths, sauna-esque, and they are very different. I mean, I don't know whether kind of cold baths, while I feel them very effective, a lot of it is psychological. The way I feel about it feels good.
Yes.
That's not always necessary, because I can have the same thing from a hot bath. I get, I feel loads better, but it's from a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the psychological impact of, or training, injury prevention, injury rehab, whatever it is. The psychological part is always kind of missed out.
Yeah.
You know, if you talk to anyone that works quite high up, they have to make allowances, or these conversations happen with athletes quite a lot, where it's like, you don't like doing ice baths. I'd like you to do it, but you don't want to do it, so we do something else. Whether that's just put an ice bath here, or we do something completely different. You're not always going to get what is we consider optimal every time.
It's always that blended approach, because I've read plenty of research where it's kind of alludes to cold therapy can actually slow down recoveries of areas. So really, one of the biggest aspects of it, aside from removing waste product, is pain. You're just going to numb the pain.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later when we talk about rehab or like acute injuries, but you need inflammation to help. It helps. That's why it happens. Your body's pretty smart. It knows what it needs. And you know, you take a pulled hamstring, for instance, there'll be a bleeding phase, and then it'll be inflammation. And if you keep taking ibuprofen all the time, and you don't let your body actually do that, your recovery is going to take a bit longer, just from a physiological standpoint.
I mean, it goes into the way I see wider society, because most people are like, I don't want any level of pain. Yeah. And even like the doctors and stuff, I know, I get it. Some people need to manage their pain because it's chronic. Yeah. But my approach with people is always like, how painful is it really? Like, and what I mean, like, if it's the way I would describe chronic is it's going to stop either day-to-day life, simple things, or even like disrupt sleep. Like if you can't sleep because you're in pain, we probably need some level of painkiller, get some ibuprofen. Let's deal with the pain. And then, yes, it may slow down the recovery, but at least you're not in pain. You can do some normal stuff. If they're not that, I'm like, it's a bit of pain. It's a nice warning sign. Again, you know, rather than you just trying to mask it, how about you take the signal, stop doing some stuff that we know is currently inflaming it. Like, you're going to have to stop squatting. Oh, but I want to say, no. Like, there's no other pain other than what we've got. It flares it up when you squat. We just need to not do that for a little bit and just let this injury set out. Yeah,
definitely. Like, runners are the worst. They just are. At any level, they're just the worst, because it's all repetitive. They know exactly, nothing changes really, other than maybe what's underfoot. And you know, you take someone with a lateral ankle sprain, they will take that to high heaven, hoping they've taken it properly. Yeah. They will pop some ibuprofen before they go out for their run. They'll go on their run, fine, they feel great. Then they come back, and then the same problem's happening again. It's like, say, they're masking it. You need it as a safety mechanism. If I move this way, does it hurt? Yes. Don't move that way. Let it recover.
Yeah.
You know.
So, Marco, should we have that level of movement? Yes. But right now, it's not beneficial. Yeah. I mean, one of the craziest things that I usually see with runners, and this always blows my mind, they'll come into a session and they'll avoid plyometrics, like box jumps, like jump on a box, step off. Or it does this, or it hurts my knees, or like I'm like, you run. Yeah. It's like the most basic plyometric. You're jumping from one leg to another repeatedly for maybe like 30 minutes non-stop if you're off all right at it. Yeah. And you're worried about doing 10 box jumps. I don't get it. And it's like, again, it just shows up that both of these exercises are plyometric in nature. One, you're just doing all the time and you're stuck into this gait. It's showing up a weakness that you're probably not mobile enough.
Yeah, hips, I'm sure knees. If you watch those people that don't want to do plyometrics, their running form is probably pants.
Yep. Running off. I mean, I always look at just hip. Are they able to lift their knee? That's one of the first things I look for. Are they lifting their knee? Yeah. No. Well, then, you know, they're pushing off their calves. And then they wonder why the calves are blowing up, or they're getting ankle injuries, or they're sore around the feet. And it's like, well, you're not mechanically moving. But it's a big mistake of like, to get better at running, guess what you need to do? More running, don't you, Pete? Like, no.
Not always.
No,
definitely not.
Get better running. Like, we need to mechanically move better. So hips moving really well, and then really strong. So I want to move them really well, and then I'll build up some strength conditioning. Let's lift some heavy weights. Let's deadlift, and then I'll remove that weight. Oh my God, I'm flying.
Yeah.
And part of it was me doing some cardiovascular training to keep my running ticking over.
Yeah.
But the blend's the most important bit. And where did they get? If they did that strength conditioning, their injury rate would be significantly lower.
Oh, every time. You know, you can't. You know, if they're running on the roads and they hit a drop curb and it throws their hip out a little bit, you can't get around to that unless you teach them how to scan the floor. But chances are it's not going to hurt them as much as it would have done. And if it does hurt them, they're going to come back so much quicker. And I think that's one thing that people don't understand is the better nick you're in, the faster you get back from any injury anyway. That's just how it works.
Yep.
Whereas if you've got a bad foundation already and then you get injured, you can be out for a while.
Well, you have to, for me, anyone that's like gone into an injury, we'll just say in poor condition, like they're not as fit as they think they are maybe, or not as fit as they should be. They'll get injured and they kind of have to get through the injury, and then they have to now you have to do your foundation, because you broke because your foundation wasn't there or wasn't very good, and you're trying to carry on doing what you was doing before, and that's why it keeps flaring up, and that's why you keep having this repeat injury. It's like, stop doing the same thing. And that's one of the most frustrating things, because not only can the injury take ages, the foundation is definitely going to take quite a long time.
Yes.
So you get through that injury phase, and it's like, now you've got to do it properly.
Yeah, and I think goal setting's a big thing around that as well. Is you talk to any runner, it's what's my 5K time, what's my 10K time. It's like, yeah, that I'm sure that's important to you. Fair enough. You go to run to get better at running, fine. Yep. But how far can you jump? How much can you lift? How are you moving? If you did a movement screen with most runners, you'd probably find that they're in a horrible place with the way they move. It's probably not going to be very good.
I mean, you can see it when they walk anyway. They're just stiff in position. I mean, one of the things, really, it's counterintuitive anyway, because everyone that I train that runs, they'll always ask me, how do I get faster? And when, obviously, you go through all the strength, let's do the strength conditioning, blah, blah, blah. When I'm talking about running, like when we go to run, how do I run faster? I'm like, you can't run quicker than you can run.
Yeah.
Right? Here's my top speed currently. I can't run quicker than that, even if I try to. Like, just run hard as you can. Run as hard as you can. You'll run quicker. It don't work. I get my clients running quicker and myself running quicker by going, right, how are you running? And in the mode, so when I'm running, I'll be like, right, pick my knees up, relax. And weirdly, I'm focusing on kind of stride length, being nice and rhythmical. And then when I look at my watch, I'm like, fucking hell, it's quick.
Yeah.
And I do that not by focusing on trying to be fast. I do that on trying to move better.
That's economical. Yeah.
And that's, again, that bleeds into everything. Because when you take that, I need to be a more economical runner. And when you're like, how do you become that more economical runner? If you ask the client that, they'll go, well, it can't be just running then. I need more efficiency in other ways. And then that's where hopefully they would fall into like, okay, how do I improve my hip mobility? How do I get my ankles not as stiff as bricks?
Yeah.
And all these kind of things there. How do I lift more weight and make my kinetic chain, my arse cheeks and my hamstrings work really well? And hopefully then they're kind of like, yes.
Yeah.
And then they get less injuries.
Exactly.
Which is the crazy bit. Right, Connor, so injuries. I want to go through some do's and don'ts. So you're going to go into training, you're going to go into sport, just some level of physical activity. What's a small list of do's and what's a small list of do nots to make sure that kind of injury prevention is at top of the list?
Do warm up, please. Whether that's a group warm up with people that you're training with, whether it's something you need to focus on individually, something that's been prescribed for you, just go and warm up. Make sure you move in ways you're going to move during that session. Whether, like, if you're a runner, do some lunges. You need to get your hip to move that way to be able to run well. If you're coming into a normal sort of group exercise class, move in every which way you can. You got to twist. No one twists. Everything you do is twisting. Near enough. Twist. Do something where you're going to twist. Even if it's just a lunge with a twist or a bend or something, move your trunk. That's what I think. That's one of the biggest things is like pelvo-lumbar support from your core. Is very few people have good support. So if you can warm that up, then you'll be ready to go. So yeah, warm up. Definitely warm up.
So I think with that warm-ups, one of the key bits is people kind of forget because, as you say, our hips rotate. And then, especially in gyms, it's why gyms kind of fail a little bit in my eyes. everything's just kind of straight
lines.
And that's where that word, it gets chucked around a lot, functional. Now, for me, functional training is just like, you get a lot of movement that generally replicates day-to-day stuff. Do some stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people, like, if it feels uncomfortable, if you can see a movement, do some movement that then make it feel less uncomfortable. Let's say you go into a squat, feels a little bit tight. Well, how about you do some bridges or some pigeons and just kind of go back into it. And does it feel easier, like as in smoother? And then there you go. And then you build up to then squatting a heavier weight. Just kind of make it feel less crap.
Yeah.
And you do that in a warm-up.
The perfect way to warm up for a squat is to squat. If you think, when you go through all the stages of a warm-up, if you do 10 squats, your heart rate's going to come up.
Yep.
Yeah. You'll have mobilized your hips a little bit and your ankles by squatting. If you need to potentiate, do some squat jumps. Now you're ready to squat. More than likely, you're ready to squat now. At least your lower body is. Like, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Warm-ups are usually pretty simple. Yes, you'll see some people with bands, fine. But again, if you're probably female, you probably need a band to warm your glute med up, so your knees aren't caving in. So we stay away from the MCLs and the ACLs. But that's what it's for.
I mean, most people, there's 4 easy things to do during a warm-up. The first thing everyone kind of does is pulse raise.
Yeah.
So get your heart rate up. Simple. Then we kind of need to look at kind of mobilizing and stretching different bits. So we kind of start moving into the second and third points, and they kind of blur in a little bit, produce movement around the joint that the joint should do. Yes. Now that may lower the heart rate a little bit, and then that fourth bit is just bring your heart rate back up again. So basically get a little bit out of breath, do some dynamic movement of some sort that both moves and stretches joints and muscles, and then start to bring up your heart rate a bit more, and then go into your main workout. That's it. A massive do. And I'm hoping that the listeners like, oh, is that it? Yeah, that's it. Just do a warm-up.
It's simple. It doesn't have to be complex. It's very, very simple.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding anyway, because what people don't realise, when they're lifting their best, let's say they get a PB on their squat, right? You are only getting a PB in your squat if you've done a really good warm-up. It's not happening in another way. Right, so that if you're going through a PB and you can't do it, one of the things, I've been trying to lift this weight for ages and ages and ages. There's something wrong with your fundamentals. You're either not warming up or maybe not even recovering properly, and it needs to go in. And doing that warm up is a massive do. Cool. What other do's have you got, Connor?
So other do's, periodize. Big word. Looks daunting to most people.
Yeah, a lot of people get put off with it.
The more you read into it, the more daunting it gets.
Yeah, don't.
Literally, don't do it. Don't go into like Eastern Bloc periodize. That's the first thing that'll come up. Eastern Bloc periodization. Don't look at that. Periodize. If you're going to come to, say, somewhere like here and do 5 sessions a week, you might double up on some days. You do 5 days. Some of those sessions you are not going to go all in.
Yep.
Simple as. That might look very different. Say over those 5 days you went all in every day. Monday would be great. Tuesday would probably feel okay. Then DOMs would set in. Wednesday's going to feel horrendous. But you're still going to push yourself. That's where injuries probably start happening. Thursday, you mean a hole. Friday, you won't come. It's as simple as that. You won't. You'll get out of bed screaming because your core won't let you get sit up. Your legs hurt when you touch the floor, and you just sack it off. Pick 1 or 2 days where you're going to hammer it. You're going to come in, I'm doing a big Metcon session on Monday. I'm doing the same on a Thursday. They're my 2 big sessions. After that, come in and use it for movement. Use it for the environment. Don't use it to just hammer yourself to go home to try and sleep it off.
I can't tell you how many people I have helped improve, as in like get stronger, fitter, run faster by going, I'm going to take a session off you and I actually want you to recover.
Yep.
Have a day off. Now that don't mean you just sit on your butt. If you want to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you want to do some light stretching, go for some light stretching. But just let your body just recover.
Yep.
Everyone kind of nods and agrees that, when do you actually get fitter? It's like, well, not during it. You just break yourself down, and then through your sleep, you generally fix yourself, and your body's like, well, that needs to be thicker, that needs to be stronger, that needs to be that, and it goes from there. And the amount of people that just, it's the same principle. They think more is more. And it's not. For those people that don't kind of understand periodization, you just have literally periods where you maybe work on specific things or periods where you work hard or not. A really basic point is, so if you look at kind of football, on a bigger scale, you've got things like pre-season, main season, off-season, and you can already tell by what you're going to do in them periods. Pre-season, fitness. Main season is reduce, work on technique and stuff, and then off-season is recover. Now you can do that. That's on a large scale of months. You can do that in a small kind of week by week basis. You know, if you're not getting stronger or fitter, start looking at when you need to be pushing and when you need to just kind of tailor it in. If you're kind of getting stuck with your resistance, you might have, I don't know, 2 months where you're working on just strength stuff, you know, like heavier lifts. And then you might just have a good few weeks where you just reduce it significantly to let the body recover off it. So periodization is just a posh word that basically goes, I'm going to break up my training into distinct chunks, and each chunk, and they don't have to be the same size, I'm just working on different things, and it offers me a longer term view that I will be able to sustain rather than just breaks me overall. So we've got warm up and we've got periodize, which is just about being sensible.
Yeah. It's something that a lot of people forget. You know, you get a program, say, off the internet, people that, you know, want to get bigger. You get a program off the internet, it's a 6-day split, and they go, wow, I work my arms twice a week and I look massive. And then what they don't realize is after 2 weeks of that, their body's shot, they've done too much too early, and actually their muscles only get smaller.
Well, I mean, there's in line that we haven't really talked about it, nutrition. Yeah. Because I'll guarantee you, the moment someone ups their training, I mean, it's a lot to do at the same time, but upping the amount of protein and calories they're getting to match it is hard. So you can train as hard as you want. If your diet is not in place and you're not sleeping well, you are just not going to recover. So imagine this is where the injury happens. I trained really hard. Brilliant. I enjoyed it. But my diet was poor because I'm going to try and out-train my diet, obviously, because that still does the rounds. And then, you know, I kind of scramble a recovery, but I'm a bit jaded. And I come in, I do it again. And all of a sudden you get 6 weeks down the line and I'm just so fatigued and demotivated. And then bam, that's what pushed me over the edge, and an injury. I mean, the person will blame the exercise.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was the deadlift that hurt my back. It's got nothing to do that for weeks on end, you've just been hammering yourself. You've not been making good choices and recovering. And you're wondering why your body gave up. And you're actually getting weaker, not stronger. It has to go together. And that periodization kind of moves into that area anyway. Just kind of give yourself that time to actually recover overall.
And that blame game as well with the exercise, it works both ways. You'll always see someone, this exercise fixed my shoulders. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. I tell you now, it didn't.
It's alluding to maybe something you had missing.
Yes.
So here's a particular exercise. Let's say, you know, because I've got some go-to exercises, and we may talk about go-to exercises in a bit. And one of them just kind of shoulder circles.
Yep.
Circumduct your shoulder. Let's get it moving really well. People will do it. I'm like, yeah, it is. But we can do this in different ways. So it doesn't have to be that particular exercise. What we want is that particular movement, especially for you.
Exactly.
So it's never one thing. It's like, and it's better to kind of, especially with mobility in my eyes, we know these joints can produce significant movement. So let's try and get that in a multitude of ways, just various ways where we can get it. But that bleeds into that warm up again. Find out what your body needs. I mean, most people I come across have got rounded shoulders from day jobs. I mean, what kind of postures you see in the what's the sport doing?
Still the same, really. With the age groups that I work with mostly, like university students, they're hunched over laptops or in lecture theatres that they don't want to be in because they never do. But they're all sat in the corner like this, just thinking, when do I get out of this lecture hall? And then they go out and they do the same thing when they go home, or they go sit in the canteen or whatever. They're still just sat like this, looking at something, doing work, whatever. So it's very much the same. And then when that feeds into, say, rugby, if my front rowers like this, they're not going to scrummage well.
Nope.
So from a technical standpoint or a tactical standpoint, chance of losing the ball quite high when we need it. And from an injury standpoint, if they're like that, they're going to hurt their back, and there's more chance the scrum collapses. Scrum collapses, there's people like the hooker, got no arms, their neck's just on the floor, there's people on top. So as well as it being a performance outcome, there's also a safety aspect to it as well. So when you think about postures, then yeah, have you stretched your chest today? Are you internally rotated? Some people walk around really proud chest, but somehow their arms are still like this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we need to fix that. That's the thing we need to fix.
One of the easiest things to work that out, because you can stand up with your shoulders back, just have a look at your thumbs. If your thumbs are kind of still sticking in, then you're still technically not doing what you think you're doing. We should be able to open out them hands as well as your shoulders be back. So set your shoulders back all you want, but if your palms are still turning inwards, it's a little bit of a clue that you may still need to work on that overall. So I'm going to say a third do is maybe work on mobility. That's quite open in general.
Open in general, but extremely, extremely important. Going back to the injuries that I've seen a lot of, the ACLs, the MCLs, that kind of stuff. Yes, the mechanism is knee turns in, knee valgus, and if it's contact, even worse. But netballers, it's non-contact for the most part when it does happen. If your hip hasn't got the mobility to turn in, while everyone looks at it, it's a bad movement, don't ever do it. You still need to be able to do it. You have to be able to do it safely. But if your knee can't turn in, the window of where you can pop your ACL is loads higher or loads bigger. So if you can get into that movement, but also stabilize your hip as well, then you're in a good place.
This is where, for me, it's like because you need to work on imbalances, because some imbalances can create an injury. And an imbalance is basically this side is weak or this area is weak and you're not stable. I mean, while I don't want that kind of knee knocking action, because it's not great for the knee in the long term, there's still the question of, does the hip produce that movement? Yes. Yeah. Is there a likelihood ever of me being pushed into that as such, where my knees would then internally, well, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if we were still strong? So ideally, I'm not going to go in there unless I need to. Yep. And if I do go in there, I'm really strong there. So even if you're working on an imbalance and trying to get, outer and your glutes firing a little bit more to pull it out, that you still need to train that inner, both with range of motion and strength, even if you're still slightly working it to an imbalance kind of point of view, where you want one a little bit more dominant than the other, you still need to be strong.
Yes. Especially when you get to sports as well, like mostly in gyms, like you said before, everything's straight lines for the most part. You're very safe. There's no chaos. You've got the control chaos continuum when it comes to sport, especially. In a gym, it's very controlled. The only chaos is if someone rolls a weight onto your foot, or let's say you drop something. Very, very unlikely that anything else is going to happen that you're not already in control of. You get onto a rugby pitch or a football pitch. What if that person over there does something? That means I have to change my body angle, or if they fall on me, then what happens? So you have to accommodate for what could happen.
That's where you've got to look at the environment, because what's going to happen soon as well, especially with all the runners that are listening, they're going to go indoors on a treadmill that's nice and flat, and the treadmill half does it for them, and they'll spend, I don't know what, a good maybe 6 months indoors on a treadmill, flatbed, and then as soon as the weather gets bright, they'll go straight out and try and carry on from where they were. And it's like you've just gone from you've got conditioned to an easy base, which technically is not a good idea anyway, because most of you running, you want outside or your events are outside where there's unevenness. We need to train for that. And maybe if you have been on a treadmill for a long time, which is fine, the moment you go back on the street, you're going to have to not start again, but strip it back.
Yes, definitely.
Because of the unstable nature. And, what would have been better is actually just keep a little bit of road running in on the days that maybe, it's a bit raining, go and do the road running, because I still want you conditioned to the road.
Yeah. Or do what everyone else is doing, do some trail running on the really boggy, trails.
Yeah.
Get a pair of rugged shoes and go and do that. And then when you do get back to road running, your likelihood of getting injured is so much lower again, because you're conditioned to even worse ground.
Yeah.
And you can handle it. Your hips can handle it. Your ankles can handle it. Your knees can handle it. When you get to a relatively flat road, you'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah. So it's kind of adjusting to that environment and condition and in building that into your training a little bit more. Right. Let's do some don'ts.
Let's
don't.
Okay.
What not to do.
Well, like we've alluded to already, don't rely on one thing. I'm guilty of it. Most people are guilty of it. You have that one warm-up exercise or that one thing you love in your program that, it might be a big back squat. I've got a huge back squat. I want to keep it massive. Do you really need to do that? Or is there something else you could do that's better? for what, again, your environment, what you're about to go and do. Runners, do you want to squat? Yeah, it's a great exercise for runners. When are they ever on 2 feet? Never. So let's have a look at what you like on 1 foot. You know, can you split squat well? More than likely, a squat looks great because you've got a lovely base of support. Your knees contract really well. As soon as you go onto one leg, most people, that knees are going to drop straight in. The ankle is going to disappear. And then that's where you find actually that's where you're weak, and that's where we need you to get better.
It's one of life's lessons where most people want to do what they're already good at, because it rubs the ego. Where most people are completely avoiding the thing they should do. I don't like doing that because it's hard. I don't like doing that because it's uncomfortable. Listen to what you're saying. The whole point of training is improvement.
Yeah.
It's hard. How about we get it to a point where it feels easier? You know, or it feels uncomfortable. There's a flag again. You're not moving right.
Yeah.
You know, because bodyweight squat, or even with a little bit of weight, it might feel great. And the moment you put on, we'll say, a challenging weight, it's going to show up all your hairs and graces. And it's going to teach you a lesson of like, your glutes are weak, or, you know, you're not stable in your feet here. We need to do some other stuff. You get away with it when the weight's lighter.
Yeah.
You see that a lot of deadlifters. They've got these fractional technique flaws. Well, that weight don't matter. You get away with it because you're stronger than what it is. You know, like having the bar too far away.
Yeah.
You get away with it. You pull it in. The moment you go up a little bit, you ain't getting away with that.
No.
You go, oh, my fucking back. Yeah, you're shit form. Told you. Focus on form. Focus on these cues. And then bleeds up. So, you know, avoiding the stuff that they should know. So get that don't in.
Yeah, don't avoid, don't rely.
Yeah. Don't avoid it. You need to do it. Do it. Right. Give me another don't.
Another don't. Let's think. Don't be the ego lifter. Don't do it. It's not worth it for anyone. No one's watching. If they do, they're probably laughing because they think you're going to drop it on yourself. And again, pushing yourselves at the wrong. This is when the periodization comes in. If you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, every time you come in, say, you know, bench press is usually the one you'll see in a normal gym. Is you got people with huge amounts of weight, half rep in, or getting stuck at the bottom. And then at some point, that's going to deteriorate because they're not having recovery periods. They're just trying to smash a PB every time they're in there. That's when injuries will happen, or your progress will start going backwards. You'll start regressing. So yeah, don't be the ego lifter.
So when we say ego lift, for me, it's understanding your capability, and it makes me cringe when you see some people that supposedly like increase massively in a short amount of time, and it, in my eyes, it kind of like piques my interest because I'm like, how much weight did you put on in this amount of time? Because that's blowing my mind.
Yeah. Like
even when I've put through people through set programs and I've got strong, we've gained a lot of strength, but it's not like wanging on, I've put 40 kg onto my deadlift within 2 weeks. It's like, how?
Yeah.
How have you done that? And it's ego lifting. You're lifting each time you go up, you're just doing it worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
That's what we don't want. That's an ego lifter for me. There's nothing wrong with you trying to improve your ego when your foundation's in place. So I know my range of motion's good. I've got good control of it. Let me try and get a little bit more. That for me is not ego lifting. That's just pushing and trying to enhance the progress overall.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, you have to pass it through kind of filters. Are you moving over a full range? No. Lower the weight. You're not getting any favors out of that. You're not doing what you think you're doing. You are just going to hurt yourself. And then, they've hurt themselves. And they get frustrated. So, do's and don'ts. We're just going to have a quick recap. Do warm up, obviously. Do think about periodization. You know, that could be just week by week. When are you working hard? When are you just going to allow the intensity to drop a little bit more? Work on your mobility. There'll be some stuff that you do daily where you kind of go, that feels a little bit uncomfortable. That feels a bit tight. They kind of clues straight away that maybe you should work on your shoulders. Maybe you should work on your hips. And if you're not sure, get some help from someone that knows what they're doing. Don't avoid the exercises that you know you should be doing, and don't lift to ego, lift to capability. You've got to be really realistic with yourself. Right, I know what you're thinking, that all this advice is great, but it's not useful because you're already injured, aren't you? Because you've been doing some of the stuff that we've been telling you that you shouldn't be doing. So in this next section, we're going to talk about the kind of top 3 tips for maybe people that have already picked up injuries on how to get through it, remain motivated, and ideally not let this injury kind of crop up or other injuries crop up. So, Connor, what do you think like your top 3 tips are for anyone that's currently injured and working their way back to full fitness?
First one, patience. Definitely patience. The last thing you want to do is come back too early, get re-injured, and then have to go through the whole process again, because it is a long process for most injuries. You take a standard sort of muscle strain. You've got phases that your muscle has to go through, so you're just going to bleed. You're probably going to have a bruise. That's normal. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. After that is the inflammation. So we talked about earlier. We need inflammation to get better. There will be a phase where it's going to hurt. It's going to suck. You've got to get back down on your mouthpiece and just get through it. Then proliferation and then remodeling. So they're the 2 phases where you're probably back to some sort of training. It's directed. Runners probably won't be running yet, but they're the stages your muscle needs to go through to get back to a point where it's still elastic. It can still produce force like it was before it got injured. So that takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight.
I mean, most mild to like low level injuries of any sort, like strains, sprains, low level tears, like lowest level where it's a little bit uncomfortable, you're looking at like 3 to 6 weeks on average. And that depends on your age, your nutrition, your condition, how you went into it. So when you went to most people that picked up a low level injury and I go 6 weeks, disgusted, like it can't be. And it's like, it's just the way it is. Your body is amazing, but it also needs time. Now, will it be 6 weeks? Who knows? A lot of it is down to your compliance to some of the things that we know we should do. And one of them is maybe just like stop exercising. As crap as it is, it's too fresh. It's too soon.
First couple of days, that is definitely what you were doing. You won't be doing anything with it.
Yeah,
it's just how it is. But then, so get probably into the next top tip would be to assess regularly. Assessments can be objective, they can be subjective. An assessment for you could be, that still hurts my walk on it. That's an assessment. I know when I go up the stairs, my calf hurts. You have assessed your calf in that instance. That is a good thing. Keep doing it.
One thing I try and get people to do is try and split in their mind and their feelings what discomfort is and what pain is. I'm like, I don't want pain. That's a clue of like not to do something. Discomfort, slightly different. And it's being really objective with that assessment, being truthful with it. Don't say it's not pain just because you want to get back quicker. The patient element. Is it sharp, painful, not very nice? Or is it a case of like, I can just really feel that stretching and this pressure and this just maybe some dual soreness? That's very different in terms of then what steps you may take moving forwards.
And again, that's an assessment, and you can do that daily. You can do that sessionally. It's however you want to do it, how often. That is an assessment, and it's a good assessment. Generally, most people use the 1 to 10 scale for pain, and it's usually 4 no more. So if their pain threshold is saying it's at a 4, nearing on a 5, cool, we're not going to push it any more than we already have. But if we're under that, then that's it's discomfort. It doesn't feel great because you've injured it, but we need to get it moving or get it stronger. So that kind of subjective assessment is really good. That kind of pain assessment is also really good. But then if you're looking to perform, if you are a runner and you want to get back on the roads and beat your 5K, there has to be some sort of objective performance element to it as well. So whether that is, can you balance on that leg? You've rolled your ankle. Can you balance on that leg? That is objective.
I mean, one thing I read ages ago, and I still stick by it now, and I'm not a physio, just to point that out there, but getting people back on track is a really simple 3-step process overall. The first thing is range of motion. So you're on your way back. Have you got full range of motion back at that joint to what you would consider fairly normal, for what the better word? No. Okay. Still way too early, or you need to work on that mobility. If we've got full range of motion, the next thing, do you have stability? So I work over this range. Am I in control, or do I get pain, discomfort, or like that? No, I haven't. Well, we either need to keep working on the mobility, or I need to stay at that stability where I'm like just slowing or even stopping. isometric holds until I've got that stability element back. And then finally is strength. Can I carry my own body weight or ideally some load? Now, what I find most people do is it starts to feel okay, straight into number 3.
Yep. They'll always miss stability. Always. People find it boring. It takes time. A lot of people like reps. I'm the same. I love reps. If you tell me I have to hold something for a certain time, I'm going to look at you sideways.
It's horrible though, isn't it, as well? It's hard.
But stability, for the most part, that is what you're going to do. You're going to hold. You're going to stand on one leg for 30 seconds at a time, and then we'll jazz that up as much as we can. You know, if you get good at it, cool, I'll throw a ball to you. Now you've got to control your hips and your core and stay on your foot. And that, again, that's part of the process is people, like I say, the 3 steps then can turn into 9 steps quite quickly.
Yep.
You know, that range of motion at your ankle, can it go forward? Yeah, perfect. Can it go sideways? No. Cool. That's the next step of that first step that we just split. Same again with the stability. Can you stand on one leg? Yeah. All right. Can you put your hand over here and stand on one leg? No. All right. So you need some sort of dynamic portion to this. That means you're going to be challenged. And again, it sounds really simple, but as long as you're challenging someone, then they're going to stick to the plan. As soon as you go, here's this exercise, do like any, I don't want to bash the NHS, but any NHS physio, here's some exercises, crack on, I'll see you in 6 weeks.
Connor, don't want to bash the NHS, I will.
They do a great work, but their physios are pants.
The NHS physios, it makes my inside shudder because for years, when people have gone there, it seems to be this policy of what's wrong with you? Tell me what's painful. Here's a sheet. Off you go. And that is it. And then they'll bank in with the doctors going, the doctor told me to take painkillers for 6 weeks, and then the physio just gave me this sheet and I don't know what half the exercises are. They're never getting back.
No.
It's such...
Or it's going to take so long, and they've spoken to 10 different people that are friends of friends, or they know, that go, you should do this. No, you should be doing this. But at this point, you should be doing this. And again, the thing of the NHS is they have to be there's so many people to see.
Yeah.
They kind of have to be in, here you go, now leave. In, here you go, now leave.
I know that post-COVID, and I hate that word, they had a backlog of people with physio problems, and they changed the policy in line with let's get through this backlog. Yeah. But in my head, when I heard that was one of the tactics, it was like, well, that's going to come unstuck because all them people that you've not helped, sooner or later are going to get back into the system. You're papering over cracks. But
and I know a few NHS physios, and
frustrated, aren't they?
Very, very, because they know they've got the expertise to do the job well, but they're just not given the time.
So I should clarify that we're not bashing the people of the NHS. We're bashing the policy of the way they sift through it. I know some very good NHS physios. They're just shackled by policy overall. So let's get back on track. So if you're injured currently and you're working your way back, remember you need to stay patient. You need to give it time. I know some of you may have been injured for months. That's the way it is. I mean, we only talked about like kind of mild injuries being 3 to 6 weeks. Moderate to severe injuries, it could be 6 months, depending.
I've got a netballer who's looking at second surgery after ACL because they didn't clear up her meniscus how they should have done. She's been out for a year now, and she will be out for another 9 months.
So that's going to massively affect, we'll just say, mentality.
Oh, huge.
So what do you think? So we've got patients going to kind of assess as you go. Let's have one that's going to help keep motivated or pull them out of the down moments that you're going to have if you are out for months, if not in some cases years. Yes,
the big thing is always that end goal of where do you want to end up? Is it just being back where you were? Do you want to be better than where you were? Like for this netballer, for instance, she plays NPL. She's a high-level netballer. She's part of a franchise. She wants to be back playing franchise netball. So there's healthy and there's performing. So healthy is I can walk unaided. I can move pretty well. But if I jump up and land on one leg, I'm probably going to hurt myself or it's not going to look great. Then you get to performance, which is meet the demands of the environment you're going to be in. So netball, you have to jump every way around the clock face. You have to land on one leg. You can't stutter on that leg. It has to be a dead stop, or it's called footwork. That's a rule you have to take into consideration when you go into rehab as well. Is everything looks great, but every time she jumps onto that one leg, she takes a little hop. That's no good. You can't play netball like that. You will get done every time by the ref, and you ultimately stuff like that gets you dropped from teams. So always have the end goal, and then the other two things come into it straight away. Is end goals here. Where are we assessing and what are we assessing, and how are we getting from step to step in terms of the exercise choice, what we're doing with them, all that kind of stuff.
I'd be layering on top of that and literally kind of going, so you've got this overall goal, here's your broken, you need to celebrate every little step.
Definitely. Which is why assessment's so important. People forget that. They go, oh, here's your first sheet, that'll do for 6 weeks, and you get 6 weeks, and somewhere on an information sheet it says at this point they should be here. And then you go, here's the next sheet. You have no idea if they're actually at that point yet, especially with ACLs. It's a huge long process, and the thing you'll give. So usually it's the Melbourne ACL protocol that people will use, and it's through stages of pre-op, straight after operation, which is probably usually done purely by the physio or the surgeon or the consultant because it's so soon after. Then you get into things like, can they stabilize? Then can they move properly? Can they take impact? And then it's like performance sport specific. But if you just give that booklet to someone, they won't have necessarily a clue of how to get from phase 1 to phase 2, phase 2 to phase 3. It'll give you tests to do, which is why it's a good piece of like a good protocol. But getting from, for instance, a single leg squat, can they do it? It looks good. Their knee tracked well, brilliant. Then get into how many can they do in a minute, which is a test for another phase. Join them up. Just doing more of it isn't necessarily going to
bridge the gap.
Assess and celebrate every little thing, and it's not going to be linear. Things like the time frame between one step to another step.
It's not,
and sometimes it's not even as simple as that. If you've got a knee injury, your knee is influenced by your hip and then your ankle. So hip looks great strength, looks perfect. Ankle, not so much. But can we still challenge the hip while we're having to drag the ankle up? Yes. It might not be how you want to or what you deem as optimal, but you can't get optimal hip movement if your ankle is not supporting it.
It's going back to what you said a minute ago, it's about, it's not linear. One way to look at it, let's say the average recovery time 6 weeks for just some low level. How is that 6 weeks broken up? This is where people get frustrated because the process is never the same, even if you've done the same injury. So you may have, it's going to take you 6 weeks. 6 weeks, it was 4 weeks of pain, 2 weeks of felt good and building it back up as such.
Yeah.
Or you may just have 2 weeks of pain. I'm generally feeling like I'm ready to go, but something's not quite ticking. I've got 4 weeks of frustration trying to work it out. It's like the 6 week recovery, or however long it is not a straight line, is not a step-by-step process. You may be on, let's say, step 1 for 8 weeks, step 2 for 1 week, step 3 for... Do you know what I mean? It's never going to be straightforward. And you've done the same injury and it's got a different amount of time for each stage. And that's where that, these tips come in where you go, you need to remain patient. It's like, I know you're frustrated, but give it some time. This is where assess it. Is it a bit better? Is it a bit less painful? Well, yeah, great. Then celebrate that little win. Great. It might even be something stupid like I've hurt my knee, but I was able to put my sock on myself today.
Yeah.
Yes, you putting your sock on means we are significantly closer. I know this sounds stupid. Significantly closer to getting you back in the gym. The fact that you couldn't put that sock on 2 days ago, you was not closer to getting back in the gym. Let's celebrate that. That's fucking massive.
Yeah.
The swelling's gone down enough and you've got enough movement back to do that. And then build and build and build and build. Fabulous. So your top tips for if you are injured and getting back from rehab: stay patient, assess it regularly. Remember, 4 no more. I love that little bit. 4 no more. Pain. Any more than 4, so no go. Keep an eye on the prize, goal set, and then break that down into small wins and celebrate every single win as you go. So a massive thanks for joining us today on the Witness to Fitness podcast. Huge thanks to Connor for coming in and joining us. Connor, if someone was interested in what you're doing, whereabouts, so where can they get hold of you?
So best way to get hold of me would be Instagram. So it's just Power Performance. Pop that in, you'll probably find it straight away. Largely, that's where I do. So I'm not very active on it in terms of posting, but in terms of messages, I'm pretty active on it. But other than that, you'll probably see little bits of the teams I'm working with on my stories and that kind of thing. But if you're looking for sort of like rugby orientated stuff, then definitely, have a look.
Awesome. Power Performance, you can get insight into some of the strength and conditioning stuff. Just a quick disclaimer, we are not physios. We don't know who you are. If you're injured currently, the best thing you could do is go and see a good physio, or maybe even your GP as a starting point. Don't just kind of loosely go ahead with whatever we've talked about. Go and get someone to actually assess what you have done to yourself and try not to do it again. Make sure you hit the like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and as always, stay active, stay motivated, and I'll see you on the next episode. See you later.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Witness to Fitness podcast. The place to be for everything fitness, health, and